Well, good morning and welcome to another edition of Elevenses. It's number 92 in the series. My name's Kevin Williams. Thanks for looking in. What have we got for you today? Well, bad news. We'll start with the bad news. The Isle of Man TT has been cancelled. The DVSA are reopening some test slots. Let me just get this screen level. After some date muddles. Talk about that in a minute. Should electric bikes be breaking the mould? We'll have a look at an Australian entry into the electric bike market, and we'll finish off with a study on automated driving, which basically concludes that drivers who are driving automated vehicles aren't actually focusing on their driving. Okay, settle yourself down. We'll be here for sort of 20 minutes or so. Don't forget, we're here on Wednesdays and Sundays. And if you've got anything to add, do drop me a line via the comment stream, and I will get back to you at the end of the show. Questions, feedback, suggestions for something you'd like me to cover, all welcome. So just drop me a line there via the comment stream. Okay, so all right, moving on rapidly then. Big news of the week, really, if you're a motorcycle fan, is probably the fact that the Isle of Man TT in 2021 has gone the same way as the 2020 races. So the next TT is now scheduled to take place in 2022. Again, it's the last few days of May and the first couple of weeks in June, the usual dates for the TT. Lawrence Skelly, who's a minister for the Department of Enterprise of the Isle of Man government, he said, "We do not underestimate the disappointment that this decision will cause to many people. However, we're making an early and logical decision to provide certainty and clarity to race fans and everyone else involved in the event." And the point he makes is this: the TT relies on thousands of volunteers and officials across a wide range of organisations, and we could not move responsibly towards operating to that date and commit to welcoming tens of thousands of people to the island in June, despite the progress towards a vaccination programme globally and on the island. We evaluated all possible options, including moving the TT to a date later in the year, but there are complexities and risks, including scaling up of certain infrastructure and critical delivery elements of the TT, as well as existing resident and visitor travel in late August, which would cause further disruption to thousands of people. The upshot of it all is that they hope that the classic TT in the Manx Grand Prix, which happens in September, can still take place. And they obviously will be welcoming visitors to the island, they hope, in the near future. So basically everybody is very disappointed with that decision. Lots of people have been asking, why is it necessary when it's only December and the TT doesn't happen until May, June? Well, the answer is it's the complexity of the planning. You know, it's not like a case of a few dozen riders turning up to a race circuit with nobody to watch and just needing the infrastructure sorted out, the people, the support staff at the circuit themselves, and the marshals who have to turn up. So that's why we've been able to have BSB and MotoGP and World Superbike, because relatively speaking, you're looking at a fairly simple closed environment. But obviously the TT happens covers a big chunk of the island, and there are a lot of people involved, not just in setting it up, but also spectating. And frankly, without the spectators, the TT wouldn't happen. So anyway, there we go. The Manx at the moment is still on, but the classic TT, that will still happen. The dates for that is 21st of August to Friday the 3rd of September. But it is confirmed that a final decision on those dates will be made early next year. So don't take it as read that they will go ahead. Take it as read that they haven't yet been cancelled. Okay, so don't forget, I'm back out on the road with my bike training. We were allowed to restart today. Now, when I put a notice up on Facebook the other day, I actually said it would be tomorrow. because I said lockdown ends today, but it was rapidly pointed out that I had got the dates wrong. Now, why did I get the dates wrong? Well, thanks to the DVSA, actually, because this is what they sent out in a circular to instructors back in November. It says, following clarification from the government, these restrictions will last up to and including Wednesday, 2nd of December 2020. This means all driver, rider and theory tests will restart on Thursday, the 3rd of December. Driver and rider training should not restart until Thursday, the 3rd. I read that and thought, oh, maybe I have misunderstood the government's own instructions. So I basically scheduled my own restart for tomorrow. And then, as I say, it was pointed out to me that I'd got it wrong. And it turns out, of course, that the DVSA have got it wrong because they cancelled tests which were booked for Wednesday the 2nd. And then mysteriously, people who went online to book tests through the DVSA's booking system found that they had dates available on the 2nd, i.e. today. Now, what's happened is that those dates were available in Tier 1 and Tier 2 areas only. Tier 3, they're being released from tomorrow. It's not obvious why that there'll be that extra day. Perhaps it's to get some extra preparations in place in those test centres, but who knows? The rather weird thing is that the DIA sent me an email last night, Driving Instructors Association. They sent me an email about 20 to 6 in the evening to say that those people who had been cancelled for December the 2nd were going to be contacted and asked if they wanted to actually take their test slots for today. Well, do the timing for yourself. If you got a phone call or an email from the DVSA at 6 o'clock last night to tell you how to test today, I'm not sure how many people would actually be able to take that test up. And what's happened, of course, is that many people who've had those tests cancelled for yesterday have had to go to the back of the queue. Some people are getting dates in February and March. So, okay, all a bit of a muddle. Now, one of the things that I like to point up is that motorcycles are, as much as anything else, they are a design exercise. And one of the sort of problems that many people see with motorcycling generally is that it is fairly outdated in terms of motorcycle design. The essential elements of the motorcycle date back to the bicycle, not just the pedal-powered bicycle, but even the hobby horse bicycle that came before that. Basically the rider sits in the middle of two wheels on a seat. Nothing much has changed in terms of motorcycle design for many, many years. And, one of the things that people have said about electric motorcycles is that we have a chance to break the mold and move away from this traditional bicycle design. And you could do that. It's true. There's a problem. And that's rider acceptance. No matter how much the designer likes to think up a new design, the buyer still has to want to purchase it to make it happen. Think of the Sinclair C5 if you want a sort of reasonable example of how a design failed miserably. Melbourne has just seen a new electric motorcycle company, Savic. They've unveiled a cafe racer style bike. I was going to put a photograph of it up here, but I seem to have forgotten to put it into the folder where the photographs live, so we'll have to pass on that. But if you go online and look for Savic, S-A-V-I-C, you'll find their motorcycle. I'll give you a quick sort of overview of it. Really, it's a kind of cafe racer style, so it's got a sort of humpy tank and a sort of single seat with a sort of 1960s tail hump on the back of it, drop bars, and all the design elements of a sort of 1960s hipster style bike, basically, but it's electric powered. But I took one look at it and thought, bloody hell, that's ugly. It's got a huge, great wad of engine and battery, a sort of great boxy shaped thing sitting under the tank. I kind of look at things like this and think, well, it's half one thing and half another. It's not really a sort of motorcycle that anybody would like to say, yes, that's pretty, but it's neither is it sort of revolutionary design. Anyway, if you want one in Australia, you better be quick, because it's selling out. Apparently, the first production run of 50 vehicles, 31 have already been ordered, according to the founder of the company, Dennis Savick. Have a look online and have a look and tell me what you think. I have to say, I'm not much of a fan of the look of that particular bike. Right, okay. Don't forget, you can catch the show every Wednesday and Sunday at 11, and it will run for something like 20, maybe 30 minutes if I've got a lot to say. Set your alarm and join me on Wednesday. No, Sunday for the next show. It's Wednesday today, isn't it? Right, okay. Now, moving on now to autonomous vehicles. One of the things we all tend to do is we tend to look for information that confirms our own beliefs, our existing beliefs. It's called confirmation bias for that reason. I do it, you do it, we all do it. The important bit really is to be aware of when we're looking for confirmation bias and when we are subject to misinterpreting things because it fits with our worldview. Now, I have to admit, I have a bit of a bee in my bonnet about automated vehicles. There you go, I've admitted that. They're being touted as the solution to vehicle crashes on the road. Take out the driver and you take out human error. And if you have a perfectly automated system, then you must have a perfectly safe vehicle. At least that's the argument from the other end of the spectrum. The first is there are a couple of problems though, and the first is that automated systems are created by humans in the first place. That means the programming is subject to human error. And the second issue is that autonomous systems are never really completely autonomous. They need human oversight at some point. Whether that is directly in terms of having a driver who's keeping an eye on things going on, or somebody sitting a little bit further up the chain who's watching the overall performance of an automated system and is able to hit the sort of big red button that says stop when things start to go wrong. So it's where the humans actually have impact that the errors still creep in. Our second problem is the immense complexity of what we're trying to achieve here. Some people have tried to calculate it in terms of landing on the moon and how much more complex the program that an automated vehicle needs. And it's sort of in the realms of thousands of times more complex. And this is where, for all its faults, the human brain is actually amazingly adaptable. Now, if you think about the design criteria for the human brain, we were sort of designed 200,000 years ago. That's when the sort of modern human began to evolve. And yet the design criteria never involved running faster than sort of 20 odd miles per hour, Usain Bolt style speeds. But the vast majority of us actually managed to use the roads the vast majority of the time at speeds considerably in excess sometimes of that top running speed without colliding with each other. If you look at crash numbers in terms of the numbers of drivers and the miles traveled, you're looking at millions of drivers in the UK traveling tens of billions of miles, hundreds of billions of miles actually, I think it is. And the number of serious accidents is remarkably small. It's down in the thousands. So we get it right nearly every time we're riding or driving. Although we focus on the moments it goes wrong, we need to remember that we get it right far, far more often than we ever get it wrong. And think about the complexity involved. As I said, it took decades to design a computer that could beat a human at chess. And that only involved setting up a program which could cope with 6 different pieces moving around an 8x8 board. Compare that with riding round a busy roundabout. The ability to program a vehicle to deal with every possible outcome of every possible situation seems to me to be unlikely. We're not going to be able to program an outcome, so we have to rely on some other kind of automation, I think. Yet, what we're looking at as the sort of a holy grail of vehicle automation is this completely autonomous car, one that doesn't need a driver. And in fact, Elon Musk claimed that Tesla would have one ready for the end of 2020, but he's got just on a month to sort that out. Automation's classed at 5 levels. Level 0, where there is no automation whatsoever, right up to level 5, where the driver's presence actually isn't required. So the sort of forklift trucks that you see moving around a warehouse could be a level 5 vehicle. But out on the roads, we're not even close to level 5 at the moment. In fact, fully self-driving ability, which requires a driver to be present in the vehicle, doesn't even start till level 3. And currently, we're on level 2. That's the highest available technology at the moment, which is better described as pilot assist than automation, despite what the manufacturers keep telling us. So the trouble is that many of these vehicles that are level 2 assisted involved in accidents, and if we have a look at what happens, it does seem that in many cases the driver assumed that the vehicle had higher powers than it really has, that they treated it as a level 3 vehicle, for example, a fully self-driving vehicle. There are stories of people sitting in the back seat when their car collided with something else. Now, I do want a little bit more proof than what some reporter from a newspaper somewhere in the middle of nowhere thought might have happened. But I'll have to admit, I do tend to look for studies that suggest that there are problems in the way that we're moving forward, simply because I think so many people seem to believe that we're just a short step from fixing all these faults and literally be able to curl up in the back of the car and go to sleep while it whisks us to the other end of the country. So one study has just come out which more or less agrees with what I'm saying, the cautions that I'm offering. And what it's found is that when you give people a level 2 system, drivers focus less on actual driving tasks. So the level 2 system, if you remember, is a pilot assist. In other words, rather than being an automated system, it's semi-automated. Now, the study was carried out by the Insurance Institute for Highway Safety, and they teamed up with the Massachusetts Institute of Technology, MIT as they are often known. And what they found was that the disengagement from the driving task doesn't start straight away. When people first get into a vehicle with automation, what actually happens is that we tend to keep a very close eye on it. We actually, we may switch it on, but we are still focused on the task. We're double checking basically that the system is doing what it says on the box. And that apparently is true whether the driver is operating the vehicle manually and simply with adaptive cruise control. So in other words, we're still doing all the steering tasks, but just letting the distance to other vehicles be monitored by the car itself, or whether they are using the pilot assist automation, which also involves things like keeping the car in lane and, in theory, allowing you to take your hands off the wheel. But what it found was that after about a month of familiarizing themselves with the automation features, then things diverged. The drivers using the adaptive cruise control and the pilot assist technology began to show some signs of disengagement. Basically, as they became comfortable with these features, they lost focus. They would be attentive to other things than the driving task, whether that would be on the phone, looking out the window or whatever. And they also tended to take their hands off the wheel, which of course you're not supposed to do with level 2 cars. And that's in line with past research as well, that indicates that the adaptive cruise control does have significant safety benefits because the driver is still having to pilot the car. Remember, all that the adaptive cruise control is doing is changing their following distance and speed. But as soon as you put people into a vehicle with the pilot assist that starts to take over the steering tasks as well, then the benefits seem to disappear. So the cruise control alone keeps people on task. As soon as you add pilot assist, then people drift off task. So basically, a senior research scientist from the Institute of Highway Safety, Ian Regan, he said, this study supports our call for more robust ways of ensuring the driver is looking at the road and ready to take the wheel when using level 2 systems. It shows some drivers may be lulled into a false sense of security over time. But there's another problem, I see above and beyond this. We're often presented with this image of automated cars all talking to each other, all using sort of near-field communication systems and then gliding appropriately between each other. But it presupposes one thing, doesn't it? It presupposes that all these vehicles are actually talking to each other. What happens when you put something in the middle of that situation that isn't actually communicating? And frankly, we're not going to be in a situation where all these cars are chatting to each other for decades to come. And then you've got issues like how you're going to fit bicycles and pedestrians into that. You have to have a reactive element. It can't all be done with communication. The non-talking vehicles are going to be around on the roads for decades anyway. They're not going to disappear overnight unless somebody legislates them off the road. So, my thinking on this is that the most viable solution, at least for the time being, is what's known as entraining. And this involves putting automated vehicles into a line where each simply monitors the vehicle ahead and the vehicle behind, and then adjusts speed and following distances accordingly. And something like that would be perfectly suited to motorway use. You can imagine a line of lorries, for example, going up the M1, all nice, sensible distance ahead and behind each other, all one following the other. And if one stops, then everything behind it stops safely. Perfect for motorways, but how are you going to get that to work in an urban environment? And the other point I'll make is that, in fact, we already entrain, and we have been doing it since the middle of the 18th century. It's called a railway. Right, okay, that's it for today. Don't forget, you can catch up with the show on Wednesdays and Sundays at 11. I'm back with my next show on Sunday. And if you enjoyed the show, you can pop over to my coffee page at Survival Skills, and you can support me over there. Nigel has just said good morning, that he's late again. Well, never mind, Nigel. You can watch it on catch up wherever you like. Thank you very much, everybody, for looking in. We'll see you again in a few days. Bye for now.